Empower Radio presents The Farkas Files, an exploration of energy, metaphysics, and the paranormal with David Franklin Farkas. The Farkas Files. The truth is in here somewhere. Here's your host, David Franklin Farkas.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us and spending a little time with us. And it always feels kind of strange saying good evening because I know some of you all over the world are listening to this at other times. But here it's a Thursday evening, and we're going to have another wonderful conversation, this time with Reverend Karen Baldwin, who specializes in dream work. And I'm really fascinated to hear what she has to say. But first, tonight's metaphysical musing. And tonight I'm musing about my dad. In the Jewish tradition, when someone dies, you have a remembrance every year on the day that they died, and you light a candle, and there are specific things that you're supposed to do in the tradition, but basically I just say hi and thank you. And I realized that my father died half a lifetime ago for me, and was in so many ways the most important and most trusted person in my life and my family, but also his getting ill at the time and in the way that he did led me to the teachers that I apprenticed with and that opened me up to doing the shamanic work that I do. So my dad, in so many ways, was my teacher. If Dad was still alive, he would be 103 years old, which is always an amusing image for me. And I'm sure he would be just as cantankerous and amazing as he was when he was younger. People often ask, does this run in families? And the answer is yes. But I wasn't aware of it when I was growing up. People used to offhandedly say about my grandmother, my father's mother, Grandma's kind of a witch. And I always thought that was just that, she could rustle up a meal for 25 people with no food in the house. But I'm sure there was more to it than I understood as a small child. And while my father's life didn't look particularly successful to people that were superficially looking in from the outside, he was able to get things to happen to assist other people in totally unexplainable ways. Couldn't quite do it most of the time for himself. But if somebody needed something, somebody had a problem, he would come up with a solution in totally inexplicable ways. And I was talking to an old family friend who actually lived as a companion for my aunt for years, so knew us really well, knew the family craziness. And we were talking about Dad, and she said, your dad always said, I just want to teach this boy everything I know. And I think he did. And some of it was good and some of it was not so good. But there was a real beauty and sincerity to it. And it's wonderful to honor, in all shamanic traditions, you honor the ancestors, and ancestors are all the ancestors going back throughout time. But on this night, I get to honor my ancestor, my dad, and say, I love you, thank you. So it's a very special night, and please say a prayer for Max Farkas. One hell of a guy. And that's tonight's metaphysical musing. A little more personal than they usually are. And tonight's guest is Reverend Karen Baldwin, who is our expert on dreams. You with us, Karen?
I'm here. Thank you for inviting me to share the evening with you, David.
Oh, I'm looking forward to this. Partly because I know lots of people that have done extensive work in dream time, and most of the shamanic practitioners I know would call it dream time. And while I've had little glimpses of it at various times in my life, it's really not something that I do. So I want to learn more.
Well, let me see what I can do to help you out.
Well, what I always ask everybody who's on the show as a way to introduce yourself is, how did you wind up doing this? What was your path? What led you to this?
Oh gosh, that story goes so far back.
Yeah, I know. So does mine.
Yeah, like it goes, I don't even want to tell you how far back that goes. When I was 14 years old is the first dream I remember, and I remember it so vividly to this day. I was intrigued. I was intrigued by something that could capture my imagination and my senses and my heartbeat. You know, I could feel my heart beating in this dream. And I wrote it down. You know, like a lot of young girls, I kept a diary at the time. And over the years, I would write down the dreams that made me curious. And it was probably in my mid-20s, probably right around the time I was pregnant with my son, I realized my dream life was becoming quite active and you know, flabbergasting in some ways. And I started studying, I started reading, I started studying, I started writing down every single dream I ever have, and I do that to this day. So I've been doing that for quite some time. And I've had the opportunity to study with some really wonderful teachers throughout my life. And I guess over the years, I've come to understanding that my dream life is not only a roadmap, a compass for my waking life, but it also is a predictor of my future. It is the most valuable, untainted information I know how to grasp to give me guidance in my life. And at this point, when I'm in a period of not remembering my dreams, I feel really handicapped. So over the years, it's evolved. You know, it continues to evolve. I work with a lot of clients. I've broadened my horizons with how I work with my dreams over the years, how I work with other people with their dreams. And as a matter of fact, it was about 7 years ago now I was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. And in my frenzied, as you can imagine, you know, distraught, frenzied state to try to determine what my treatment should be, I turned to my dreams, and lo and behold, you know, they offered absolute, direct, perfect guidance, and I'm cancer-free to this day.
Excellent.
It's been a good journey.
Well, there are many, many ways that people get intuitive information, and obviously dreams, if you can tap into them, are a very direct way to do that. So you've been doing this for a very long time. How do you teach people to work with their dreams?
Well, working with your dreams is like developing a relationship with your intuitive self. And like any relationship, you devote time and energy to it, and it grows, it builds, and you get better. You get better at reading the signs, you get better at understanding what your dream symbology is. You get better at trusting the information that your dream gives you. And without fail, every client I've ever worked with who has actually followed the appropriate steps, without fail, their relationship with their dreams grows and deepens and offers them miraculous information that they otherwise would struggle to find someplace else. So if you're not in the habit of writing down your dreams, that's the first step. Keep a journal by the side of the bed and a pen, and whenever you wake up from your dream, write it down, and write it down immediately. You know, we're in this altered state of consciousness right when we wake up. We're not totally asleep and we're not totally wide awake. And what feels very, very vivid in our dream life, if we go back to sleep without writing it down, we will forget it. It's pretty amazing. You know, we wake up and we think, oh, I'll remember that for sure. That was so intense. I'll never forget it. Right. In the morning, you remember you had an intense dream, but you can't remember any details. So the first thing is to write it down immediately upon waking. And even whether you have a whole narrative scenario about your dream, or you just have one vivid snapshot, it makes no difference. Whatever you have, write it down. There are people who say, I don't remember my dreams, and the cure for that is usually as simple as sitting on the edge of your bed before you go to sleep and stating an intention to the universe that I will remember my dreams.
Right.
And that usually only takes a couple days to be effective. And another technique for remembering your dreams for people who, that first technique doesn't work real well. If you really want to remember them, set your alarm, on your cell phone or your bedside alarm for about 2 or 3 in the morning when you're in the midst of some really heavy REM sleep. And when you wake up, at that, whenever you determine the time that is your heavy REM sleep, you'll usually wake up in the middle of the dream and you can write it down. For people who don't like to write, you can keep a little digital recorder at the bedside. And another trick is when you wake up, don't talk. Don't say anything out loud until you've written your dream down. There's lots of little tricks.
There always are, no matter how you're getting into this. So the first 2 tricks are set an intention to remember your dreams and write them down as soon as you wake up from the dream.
Sure, and writing your dream down is the first step in developing a relationship with your dream life. And the simple process of writing your dreams down over the course of a month or 3 months will increase the number of dreams you remember.
Right. Right. And part of it is you're paying attention to them and you're honoring them.
Right. I think that's the first law of metaphysics is form follows thought. So you put your attention on grows.
So one of the, it's Freudian dream interpretation almost as a party joke. Everybody's got some wisecrack about the Freudian implications of whatever, and sometimes the Freudian implications are actually pretty funny, whether or not you're trying to be funny. But how is it that you teach people to interpret their dreams and the symbols in their dreams?
We start off in a dream session, we start off by the dreamer sharing their dream in as much detail as they can remember. Oh, here's another tip, is when you write your dreams down, always tell them in the first person present tense. That format captures the most energy and the most detail. So I start out by listening to the dreamer's dream, and then we talk about the symbology in it. Somebody says the cat climbed the stairs and sat on my roof. It's as simple as, what do cats represent to you? What do stairs represent to you? What does a roof represent to you? And get the dreamer to talk about their own perspective on the various items or activities in their dreams. And then, of course, there are some fairly universal archetypal symbols that we as a culture are accustomed to. Horse represents power often. Rain is often associated with emotions. What type of water is in your dream? Is it a large, deep, dark ocean? Is it a clear, shallow running stream? And we explore the variety of possibilities for any one item or activity in the dream. And the dreamer will always, I don't know that it's ever been an exception to this, the dreamer will always have some gut response to one aspect of the dream or one set of symbols or one intuitive meaning. And so we start from there and work our way around through the dream. And we always remember that each dream is valid on a multitude of levels. There's always the review of here's what happened during my day today. There is the emotional aspect of the dreamer's life, the spiritual aspect. There's a community level, there's a developmental level, and there's always some aspect of future presenting itself. And so the dreamer really has a lot of opportunity to choose at which level they'd like to work with their dream. Whatever feels most pressing to them in the moment.
Mm-hmm. So you get the story and the symbols and try and interpret the symbols in the dreamer's lexicon of what the symbols might mean.
Absolutely.
And then see whether you can place it in terms of the events that are going on and what they've been asking and those kinds of things.
Yeah, that's active in their waking life this week or this month.
Mm-hmm.
And another approach to it is the approach of every single item, object, or activity in the dream is actually representative of a piece of the dreamer's self. So we'll approach it from, in what way does the affiliation with that cat relate to me as a person? How do I internalize that for in my own psychology and my own emotions, my own thinking about myself? It's a lot of fun, actually.
Oh, I'm sure. As you tell all of this, it sounds very much like a class for mediums or an oracle reading training or any number of other ways of getting intuitive information. It's more direct. The oracle is your own mind and the symbols that come out of your own mind, but as one of my teachers said, you can get the message from anything. In the Philippines, the shamans open the Bible to any random place with their eyes closed and point. And whatever they read on the page is what they're supposed to hear at that point. You can do it with a newspaper. You can obviously do it with cards, and tea leaves is the classic joke, but tea leaf reading was certainly a skill that was used for generations. So all of those are ways to tap into the power of your mind to get those intuitive bits of information, but doing it with your own dreams is much more powerful because the symbols are your own. You're not looking at an external source of symbols.
I think that's true, and I think one reason why I have grown to love dream work like I do and to be so excited to teach it and share it with people is that everyone has access to their own dreams.
Right.
There's no special equipment, relatively little training before you can be off and running on your own, and it's pretty exciting to be working with your own consciousness in that really deep way.
And it's for people who have a resistance to using other oracles, certainly looking at your own dreams, it doesn't seem as out there as learning to read cards or crystals or something else.
I think so, and I always encourage people to look at the scripture from I do not think that you need to be religious at all to work with your dreams, but I encourage people who are questioning or doubtful to go and look at the scripture of the three Western religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. In their scripture, all make reference to the power of dreams, the dreamer, the dream, and the one who can interpret the dream. It's a very ancient and respected system for gaining access to wisdom.
You're absolutely right. I hadn't thought of that. But that is a major theme in the early books of the Old Testament. So since so much of the work that I do is in a different realm, in terms of communicating with entities, getting psychic information and things like that, and I get a lot of reports of people being awakened by what appears to be a ghost or whatever it is. Do you get those kinds of things in dreams, and how do you sort that out, whether it's something that isn't that person as opposed to something that's actually a dream? And this may be a very far out there question that
it's not as far out there as you might imagine. Actually, remember that dream I said I had when I was 14?
Yep.
That was one of those hypnagogic dreams where you wake up in the middle of being between the worlds, and in that hypnagogic state, I did have an apparition in my bedroom, which at age 14, I would have to tell you was a little freaky. And I've since come to understand that as a natural part of dreaming when we leave our ordinary consciousness and travel between worlds. Mm-hmm. So I have had that experience, a handful of times in my life, not very frequently. I know people who have that experience with their dreams all the time. And they have, over time, learned to communicate with these entities that share that in between sleep and wake space with them, and they find it quite powerful.
It's very powerful, especially, I mean, I know people that do that kind of thing without doing it in the sleep state, without doing it in dreams. But there are so many people that are seriously freaked out by that experience for a lot of reasons, that they can't flip it to being a positive way of getting information. It's just scary. And I'm always surprised. I do talks about ghosts all the time to large groups, and the groups are relatively self-selecting. Nobody shows up in the room if they don't have a question about ghosts or a ghost experience.
I would like to believe that we divine our wisdom and our information in whatever way is most comfortable for us. You know, right. No need to push ourselves to that place of being freaked out. There are lots of other ways to get to garnish it that are comfortable.
Yep. Well, I was just surprised, and I'm always surprised at how large a percentage of the people in the room, if I ask the question, have you been awakened by a ghost, will say yes. And even more surprising is of those people, half of them will say what woke them was the ghost sitting down on the bed and moving the mattress, which gets into a whole quantum physics discussion.
Right. About continuum of time and space.
Right. How can something which is non-physical and is not intentionally affecting the physical, so it's not psychokinesis, they're not intentionally moving something, why can they move? Why does the bed move in response to them sitting on it? It's just a fascinating conversation.
I think one of the a shamanic way that I work with people with their dreams is we do dream re-entry. You know, there is occasionally a dream that just sort of haunts you, and you know that there's something there that you just can't quite grasp. And so we will do some shamanic work and go back into the dream, usually in a group of 6, maybe 8 people. And how that works is the dreamer shares their dream, and then they assign everyone in the group a question of investigation for when we re-enter the dream, how they want that person to go in and investigate something. And at the end of our shamanic journey into the dream and back out, when all of the investigators are telling their journey through the dream, without fail, every single time, without fail, they name some detail of the original dream that the dreamer neglected to mention. And at the end, you sit there with 6 people who are just stunned that they are able to share consciousness with each other like that.
Right, because especially the first time that happens, people are totally floored.
Yeah, because people are always wondering, am I wandering around in the right dream or not?
Right.
And when they come out and do their retelling of it, there's always a detail that assures them that, yes, you have been in the right dream, and you have met and acquired information that's valuable to the dreamer.
Right. Right. So we're going to have a break in a few minutes, and I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
They can either email me at Karen@Rev, R-E-V, KarenBaldwin.com. Or
and that's
they
Karen with a K.
That's Karen at RevKarenBaldwin.com. And they are welcome to give me a call. My phone number is 925-818-0726.
Great. And your website is?
www.revkarenbaldwin.com.
Excellent. And I just want to remind folks that are listening in real time that if you have a question or a comment and you would like to have us address it right now, you can send a Twitter tweet to @FarkasFiles using the hashtag FarkasFiles. And through the magic of modern electronics, it will show up on my computer screen. We can talk about what you'd like. The other thing is someone suggested that I tell folks you can go to my website, househealing.com, and send me an email from the contact page if you have ideas for things for the show. People that you think would be interesting for me to interview, questions about shamanism or alternative realities, whatever it is that you're curious about, send me a message from the form on my contact page, and we'll come up with a way to do that. And we'll have more input from you guys. So we will be back shortly, unless I get taller, with Reverend Karen Baldwin here on the Farkas Files. The truth is in here somewhere on Empower Radio. Don't go nowhere. We'll have more fun.
Now back to the Farkas Files with David Franklin Farkas on Empower Radio.
And we're back in our dream world with Reverend Karen Baldwin, our expert on learning more from your dreams. So when last seen, we were in a sacred circle with a group doing a shamanic process, helping someone understand a dream, which I find totally a wonderful concept.
It is remarkable. It's amazing to sit down with a group of people that you don't know, join somebody in their dream, and just through the energy of that dream consciousness, be connected with them at such a deep level that you can extract their wisdom from their dream and share it with them to change their life. It's powerful stuff.
Right. And it's a remarkable way to introduce people to shamanic work and intuition and the interconnectedness of consciousness and all of that, by having this focus of helping the person with their own intuitive wisdom from the dream. And I think that's an amazing process. I love the idea.
Another powerful, because there are some people who are not quite ready to take that step. And another powerful tool is using art. I do workshops where I'll have all the art material, and we tell people, okay, now make me a collage of your dream. Make a picture of your dream. Mm-hmm. And people are, in the beginning, sort of hung up on whether or not they're artists or not, and I reassure them that that is just not a requirement at all. But intuitively, through their own imagination and cutting pictures out of magazines and drawing little stick people and information on a big piece of cardboard paper, they will present through their art information about themselves that can then be extracted from that picture by myself and by the other people in the workshop. And art is also a very powerful opening into understanding your interior world.
And I find it fascinating that it's kind of the flip side to manifestation dream boards, which are very popular, where you paste pictures of what you consciously want into a collage on a board. And in effect, what you're doing is the same thing, but extracting the information from the dream and from the subconscious.
That's right. And I can't tell you how many dreamers I've had at a workshop who hold their poster board up for the rest of the circle to see. And they instantly start making apologies for it's bad art, and I don't think this is going to do anything, and, you know, all the excuses of why they're embarrassed over what they've made. And inevitably, by the end of everyone going around the circle and saying what they see through this art into the dream, the dreamer will be in tears. It's just amazing.
Yeah. So what other shamanic techniques are you using with this? Because I know that's a big part of your work.
I use the artwork, I use the dream reentry, and we use dream theater.
Theater. Sounds cool.
It is pretty intense and pretty exciting. It's much like the shamanic reentry, only it's all done ad lib acting. I don't know what the acting word for it is. Improvisation. Improv, that's it. Improvisational work, and people have the same set of concerns. Oh, I'm not really an actor. However, it seems really irrelevant about 2 minutes into the process. And what happens is the same thing. The dreamer tells their dream and assigns a role to everyone in the group, assigns a role, and they are going to now act out the dream as if they were some aspect of the dreamer's consciousness. And the dreamer does not participate in the acting process, but is an observer to it. And inevitably, the people get wrapped up in their roles and start pretending in their pretend energy of being some aspect of the dreamer, reveal pieces of the dreamer to themselves that unlock something about themselves that they were feeling stuck on, that they were feeling confused or doubtful about. And this can be an extremely powerful process.
Well, it's, for one way of looking at what life is exactly that we choose the people that we're going to do this life with, and that everybody acts in our play. I know I had one teacher who said all dreams are real and all realities are dreams. That there is no line that defines what's the physical and what's the non-physical. We make it up.
Absolutely.
Which of course is that whole line between what's energy and what's physical matter, and what is physical matter anyway, which the physicists don't have a good answer for.
Yeah, I'm not going to tackle that one.
I'm always surprised that they're not really embarrassed that they have that question hanging out there.
I mean, one of the things I tell my clients is, your dreams are more real than your waking life. Because the information that comes through your dreams is unfiltered through your conscious mind. It is not impacted by your conditioned thinking of however many years. It's not impacted by your waking life confusion, especially at our age, where we have developed the ability to rationalize really well. Our dreams bypass that whole rationalization system. And if we learn to work with someone, especially if we have a dream partner or a dream circle, and we learn to work with someone on a regular basis about interpreting this unfiltered material, it can move you right along at a breakneck speed through unraveling some of your issues and direction and focus.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally understand that. And for a while, I did have conscious dreams. I even had a couple of lucid dreams for a while. But that was just a period in the middle of doing other work. And for me at the moment, that's not what I do. There's a book that I'm thinking of and a movie that I'm thinking of, and I'm curious your reactions to them. Do you know the book The Kin of Ata Are Waiting?
No, I don't.
Oh, you will love
this. Can you spell that for me?
Kin, K-I-N, and I think Ata is A-T-A.
Okay. No, I'm not with that.
And it's a shamanic myth story in which there's a group in a circle and people disappear from the circle. And they then wait for them to come back with the story. And what's happening on the other end is it's somebody waking up from a dream in which they're dreaming about the people in the circle.
Wow.
So it's a connection between two worlds, one in which the person is just having their conscious life experience, but in the other one, there's this whole shamanic journey going on in which this person is a key element for the entire tribe. Read it a long time ago, probably 20 years ago, but just an exquisite book.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check that out.
And really addresses this element of not knowing what's real and what's not real, or what the effect of your shift in consciousness is having on some other reality somewhere that you may or may not be consciously aware of.
That makes me think of a famous quote from Albert Einstein, is that one cannot solve the problem with the same consciousness that created it.
Right.
We have to have a shift in our consciousness if we want to solve any dilemmas in our lives. So dreaming is a good way to do that.
And he also talked about not ever having come up with any of the answers that he had using linear thinking.
Right.
That it was always imagination that gave the initial concept, and then he'd do the math afterwards. And for some of the things, it took decades or longer for people to get the math right and do an experiment to prove it. And his first, he called them thought experiments. His most well-known thought experiment happened when he was 16 years old, and he asked the question, what would it look like if I was sitting on a beam of light traveling at the speed of a beam of light? And he had an experience of what became his theory of relativity.
Yeah,
and
was one of our foremost metaphysicians. He's incredible.
Yeah, and people know he's smart, but people don't usually get that he was a mystic. The other movie, which I need to watch probably 7 more times to understand exactly what happened in it, because it's so wonderfully complex, was Inception.
Inception. I don't know that one either. I'm sure. Now I'm on a mission.
Okay, so we both need to watch it, and then we can talk about it. The idea is that there are these practitioners that can go into people's dreams to be helpful or to manipulate them, but they, in effect, were spies that went into people's dreams. And the master of all this gets hired not to go in and take something out, which is usually the task, but to insert a thought that will get somebody, a powerful man, to make a different decision than he's presently ready to make, which will have all kinds of effects in terms of money and power and all kinds of things going on. I don't remember the details. And so he trains a team of people who are already good at going into the dream world. And at the point that they're actually doing the insertion of the information, they're in a dream, in a dream, in a dream.
Wow.
They're in 3 levels of reality away from the physical reality that they left. And they get into trouble and they have to come out. And as they come out, each level of the reality is reacting to the other level of realities as they're doing things. And it's spectacularly done. The special effects are amazing. But the complexity of what's happening, and realizing that there could be so many different levels of consciousness affecting each other, because it really was talking not just about dreams, but about multiple levels of reality happening simultaneously. And we can both watch it and have a conversation about it after.
Tell us again about the movie.
Yeah. Which is something I like to do anyway, and I may start a webinar thing where everybody agrees to watch a particular movie, and then we have a conversation about it. Probably starting with ghost movies, because there are probably half a dozen movies that get at least elements of the ghost experience, the experience of ghosts, accurate, rather than just being a creepy movie. And understanding what the experience of the ghost is makes all the stuff that people think is really creepy not so creepy. It just makes perfect sense. But there are many other movies that it would be great fun to do, including these, or Cloud Atlas, which I am now going to watch 2 or 3 more times now that I got it on DVD. Did you see that when it was out a couple months?
No, I have a list going over here though.
Cloud Atlas.
You mentioned something in Inception about spies, and I want to be sure to talk about the nature of working in a group circle, a group dreamwork circle, and the issue of spies sort of brought that up in my mind. It's really important when people are working in a circle to create an environment of safety, because obviously opening up your dreams can push some buttons, it can bring raw material to the surface, and it's really important to have that element of trust and security. Right. So there are some specific rules about working in a dream circle that if anyone wants to know about, I'm happy to send them information about it. But the 2 biggest rules are that the confidentiality, nothing that gets said in the circle leaves the circle. And the second one is whenever you're talking with someone about their dream, it's always important to do it from the perspective of, if it was my dream, I would talk about your dream like, David, if this was my dream, this is what it would mean to me. This is how it would make me feel. This is what it would represent my world. And which adds this really subtle layer of safety for the dreamer, whether or not they want to own your interpretation as true for them. And the dreamer always gets the last word on anything that is said about their dream.
Right. Well,
otherwise they can feel like someone's spying on their interior. And that's
that's always an issue in any therapeutic environment or any shamanic or healing situation, is creating that safety and having rules and confidentiality. Of course, in that movie in particular, it was basically industrial espionage. And we know that there are unscrupulous people in the world that use psychic skills in both for the government and other things that are less than ethical. But all we can control is what we do in the environment that we create. So,
right.
So just briefly, Cloud Atlas is an ensemble group that includes Tom Hanks, Halle Berry, and the guy who played Agent Smith in Matrix movies, whose name I never remember, and about half a dozen other people. And they are following this group of souls as they interact through many lifetimes.
Oh, wow.
So they show up in different roles and different genders, being the good guys, being the bad guys, and you see unfolding over time both the relationships and the effect of their choices.
It sounds fascinating.
It's amazing. And I watched it the first time, and I was so amazed at what they were doing with the movie that I think I missed the storyline. Because you're constantly going, oh, wait a minute, look who that is. And they came back as a woman, and she's doing what with who?
Yeah.
So it's just spectacular. It just came out in DVD. It was out. It was in the theaters for a short time, and then it wasn't available anywhere, and it just came out on DVD. And it's a long movie. It's about a 3-hour movie.
That's like a one to study, though. Watch it over and over and study it.
Right. It's like Star Wars or the Matrix series or any number of others where it's so juicy that every time you watch it, you get another little piece of it. And then you start knowing all the lines and watching it like the Rocky Horror Picture Show where you're saying the lines before they do. Which I do with some pretty strange movies like Hellboy or Constantine.
I did that with Invictus. I thought that was a great movie.
And, for people that don't know the movie that well, it's really annoying when you say the line 15 seconds before the line comes up. But it's so much fun. We are winding down here. What else do you want people to know about your work and how they can work with you?
Well, you've heard pretty much the description of my work. I do workshops on art, shamanic reentry, dream theater, and then, of course, most of what I do is one-on-one with clients. Mm-hmm. Learning to get a window into their dream world, or people who have... I had a young woman who got in touch with me just last week who had a series of dreams, and she says, I know these are life-altering dreams, but I can't quite put my finger on what they're about. So we work with them. People who have recurring nightmares would be happy to find out that their nightmares are not that scary after they understand what they're about. In fact, they probably won't have them again. People who are working their way through a transitional period in life, who are sorting through relationship issues or healing of old family issues. Dream work is very powerful and potent there. And I can reassure the listeners that all dreams come in service of your highest good. A dream never comes to tell you something that you already know. And no dream will ever ask you to face or address something that is beyond your ability, your capacity to face. Mm-hmm. So any issues that come up in life can be addressed through looking at the dream and actually making requests of your dreams to present solutions and answers. And one of the most common questions I get is why do our dreams come in symbols as opposed to sort of more direct, obvious information? And through the use of symbols, it allows our dreams to be valid on all these different levels that I've mentioned. And it also prolongs the shelf life of a dream. I have dreams from 10 years ago or so that I go back and I read them and I can still feel them. As long as you can still feel a dream, there's still information in there to be extracted. And symbology really helps extend the depth and breadth of one single dream over many, many years and many issues. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I actually have a client I'm going to refer to you.
Super.
Who has a difficult recurring dream that he's had most of his life. So this is perfect timing.
I have helped numerous people overcome their phobias of spiders, snakes, deep water, bridges, things that hang people up in waking life or that show up as a scary symbol in their dreams can be addressed and seen for what it really is. And oftentimes those people never even have those dreams again. So it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, because you're going directly into the source without all the conscious thought that makes it seem much more complicated than it is.
Nightmares are a message that the universe wants to be sure you don't miss. And they're very scary. It catches your attention. It causes a lot of physical adrenaline rush reaction. It definitely gets your attention. And when you go into the dream and you extract the message that the universe is screaming at you to get, and you've got it, there's no need for the nightmare anymore.
Right.
Clears it right out.
Well, there is so much more to talk about, and the hour always goes so quickly. Let's give people your contact information again.
Okay, my website is www.revkarenbaldwin.com. My email is karen@revkarenbaldwin.com. And my phone number is 925-818-0726.
Fantastic. And I know there are going to be lots of people with questions, so hopefully you will get lots of people calling you, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, I love this work. I'm passionate about this work, and it actually never feels like work. It always feels like a gift to me that I get to work with people.
Right. I get to do this for a living. How cool is that? Yeah, I love that feeling. Karen, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been great fun.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
My great pleasure. And perhaps you can come on another time and we'll just keep going.
Love to.
All righty. Thanks so much. If folks are interested in my work, doing clearing, remote clearing of people, places, situations, all kinds of stuff, you can go to househealing.com. And cleverly hiding on the contact page is every conceivable way to get in touch with me, including that email form that I mentioned where you can send me a message, but also my scheduling calendar. I do a free 20-minute reading and assessment so we can see what's going on with you and how my work might be helpful to you. So please take advantage of that, and I look forward to talking to you. In the meantime, thank you one and all for being here. Thanks for taking the time to check in and see who we're talking to, because we always have a good time with everybody that we talk to. And I hope that you'll be with us again next week here on the Farkas Files. The truth is in here somewhere on Empower Radio. This is David Franklin Farkas. Thanks so much for being with us.